Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we're both raring to go today, I think.
Yeah. I fucking love doing this show.
What? That sounded like a delivery of a line from, I think you should leave, but I can't.
Yeah, that would be a think you should leave character. Somebody who's doing something completely voluntary, but acting like it's against their will.
I think just the way you said it reminded me of that woman from the kind of Shark Tank skit, the Charlie Brown money.
Oh, yeah. I love doing this show. It's just episode after episode, and then I die.
So don't come at me on social media with blah, 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 or whatever it was. Yeah.
She's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, this week I kind of touched off it before we started recording. Very busy week. Couldn't really put anything together. So can I do 2 Hall of Fame creepypastas in a row out of a fucking grab bag?
Well,
probably not.
Luck's on your side though, because the one I did last week was pretty meh.
Yeah, it was pretty meh.
So the bar's not that high for improvement this week.
I kind of touched on it last week, but I've been doing this thing where I've been watching a different scary movie every night for October. And we're recording right now. By the time you listen to it, it will be Halloween and I'll be almost done. But it's the 26th of October right now. And what a fucking stupid challenge. To 26 fucking movies in 26 nights. For some people, it's like they probably do that anyway. But I am not that kind of film buff.
Yeah, see, I think you follow a lot of the same people I do on social media, and there's a handful that's like horrors or stuff. It's not even an October or Halloween thing. It's just they're constantly talking and watching horror. And then a lot of them do ramp it up, for October and do what you're doing, like one a day or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for them, that's not that much more than what they normally do, if any more at all.
For me, this is the most movies I've watched in 25 years.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched 31 movies total, different movies, in my adult life. Yeah. If you count every movie I've watched. I'm not a movie person.
And I won't pretend, not each one is a new movie. I go back to old favorites, and that is the only bright side to where I'm at now, is I can guarantee the movies I'm going to watch going forward are movies I like. Because, a couple of the ones I watched were just fucking pieces of shit.
Well, yeah, that's that whole genre is kind of known for, it's either something that'll be kind of a classic horror movie and people will love it, genuinely, or it's complete camp crap.
Yeah. And I'm pretty open, to different types of shit, but it's the real reason I'm talking about this is, we goof on creepypastas so much, but, some of that shit we've read on this show and had a good laugh about, it is unironic gold compared to some of the fucking crap that got put to the screen. I watched...
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe that's because horror... all genres have it, but horror is the one that, the indie stuff that people are like, oh, I saved up $500 and shot this over the weekend with my friend. Like I say, it happens in every genre, but most other genres, you're never going to come across it unless you're digging for that. With horror, it's oh, I scrounged up $500 and shot this over a weekend with my friends. It's now considered one of the 10 best horror films of 2023. I don't know why, but
I mean, it's because it's not hard. The truth is, it's a really low bar to be one of the best horror films of any given year. But I also realized, my finger's just not on the pulse for what other horror fans want. Because, I watched that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, which, a lot of people who grew up around that time, I read the books growing up, and the movie's it's made for the same way the books are. It's for kids. It's like kind of an intro to horror. But it sucked.
Yeah,
it was a bad movie.
They're generally, like, from what I remember, I don't know if I ever I probably read the books, but that was like that Goosebumps, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. What was the other fucking TV show? I just had the name in my head, and
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Was that the one that started around like a campfire and
and it was the best one. It was the most fucking Canada ass show.
But like you said, they were definitely for kids, but they were kind of for that like preteen, early teen, like, I mean, it was stuff that if you watched it when you're really young, you either wouldn't get or could be kind of scary. But
man, like Zebo the Clown is a fucking freaky idea.
Right. But it stops short of like the Saw, like we're going to show somebody's like getting decapitated. Like I remember them implying death a lot for a kid's show, but, they did. It was just not like minus the gore.
And this movie like doesn't have the gore, but it has one really horrific death that doesn't need blood. It's actually a really good. That's the thing about this movie. Like I think Guillermo del Toro was involved in it. He didn't direct, but like you could kind of feel his influence on some of the visuals, and they stay really true to the illustrations from those stories. The problem is like the thing I was watching this movie, I'm just like, why wouldn't you make it just an anthology movie? You know, and just
so they tried to like make it one cohesive story,
and that's what all these fucking things are trying to do. Goosebumps just had a new show come out, and they're doing the same thing where it's like
that was the whole thing of Goosebumps is that they were and it's different stories every week.
Yeah, and this one it's like, no, we need Justin Long for 10 episodes. You know, and we'll just have elements from those stories, and that's not what the original material was meant to do. And the material they're bringing that into is always this really generic, like, oh man, these kids awakened a curse and they got to stop the curse. You know, and it's just the most like generic shit. So
I always, even like it gets tough. Yeah, I grew up watching X-Files and loved X-Files up until they decided we have to make this one giant overarching conspiracy story instead of like they're just chasing a Bigfoot mannequin one week and then
I wanted to be
that was fantastic.
With fucking aliens, you know,
right? And it was great with that. And Supernatural was kind of the same way. What's the other one? Oh, I was going to say, and this one was meant to be this way, so it is what it is. You know, I'm not saying they took it there, but did you ever watch, what was that called? Wayward Pines, maybe? It was an animated show.
Sounds familiar. I didn't watch it, though.
About some twin, and it was like that. Like there was it from the get go was about some hidden conspiracy, but every week it would be like, oh, now there's these gnomes that like are kidnapping the kids, and again, it was borderline. It was for kids. It was a cartoon show on Cartoon Network or Disney, I think, but it was kind of that borderline, like, implying some things that, you know, you appreciate more if you're older. And it was really good. But then towards the end, when they had to address the overall conspiracy, it lost interest for me. Like, I was like,
I mean, some of my favorite shows like Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo were really masterful about establishing the world and sort of establishing this overarching plot that sort of umbrellas everything going on. But almost every episode is like this self-contained weird story that these characters are going through as they're progressing to the end. And then by the end, like, you know, it makes sense that the characters are the way they are by that point in the story, because you just went on this thing with them. That is okay to do if you're good at it and you have the episodes to do it. It is kind of a cop-out to do it, I think, for a movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then you're just replacing, like, the horror bits, like your scare moments. You're just using other people's material to be, like, your horror punchline.
Right.
So you don't have to come up with something actually scary to, like, get people invested.
And it's weird, too, because if you make a movie, but it's like an anthology of not connected skits, that's almost a little avant-garde, especially for mainstream media, and that would be something to get you attention. But instead it's like, nope, gotta stick to the formula. And that's what everybody complains about when, like, corporate Hollywood gets involved in anything. It's the same. We run in the same thing with video games or TV shows where they're like, no, that's different. It's gotta be.
It was just really weird to, like, see something like that, which I was like, if you gave me the rights to it, not saying I would make a good movie, I would fuck it up. But I have an idea of, like, what that movie should be. And, like, they went with, like, a really generic approach. And then I watched another movie the night before called Cobweb.
Yeah.
So Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark has, like, an average rating of, like, 70 or 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck am I missing? Because
I think it's nostalgia. I think some people just wanted to.
I think it's nostalgia, but to me, it's like the nostalgia doesn't hide the fact that the dialogue is written like it's that, you know, like a bunch of 40-somethings had to imagine how kids talk, and you have to deal with that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and then I watched Cobweb, and I intentionally I had heard it was good from a couple of, like, YouTube channels, but I didn't go dive deep into it. I went into it kind of blind, and everything for that movie is set up to be so formulaic. You know, it's like a kid in a spooky house. But I loved the movie because they, like, the way they told the story was really centered on the kid's perspective, and you spend the whole movie not knowing what is real and what is, like, an overactive imagination, and you are 99% sure the parents are abusive monsters. But you don't know if they're responsible for everything going on. And I thought the movie just paced itself really well and nailed everything. I check out Rotten Tomatoes. People are like, it sucked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't know what the fuck horror is anymore. I thought that movie ruled.
Maybe the Hollywood execs have a point and the general market's just stupid.
Maybe. But I don't know. I had to talk about some of these.
The best horror movie for my money right now is probably The Lighthouse.
Lighthouse was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I can watch that.
It counts as horror.
Yeah,
it's psychological horror, but it's horror.
I haven't watched it since it came out. I thought a lot about, like, going back and rewatching it, but then I remember Willem Dafoe jacking off to the White House.
I was just about to say, I thought a lot about becoming Willem Dafoe.
He seemed really happy until.
Yeah, until the other guy tried to fuck it up.
Until he tried to fuck his lighthouse.
Right.
So yeah, that was a bit of a movie recap. But yeah, I found a creepypasta. This one is by a writer named Umbrello. I'm going to just keep saying this, even though it, like, just somebody with, like, the time to look into it could probably be like, you've done 5 stories by Umbrello. Like, why are you acting like you've never heard of them? It's because I don't remember authors' names.
Not at all. So, there's been a couple that we've done twice, and I've just recognized the name, but yeah.
Usually, if we go back to them, they're usually pretty solid.
The funny thing is, like I said, there's a couple that I recognize when we come across them, but if you told me right now, Steve, name one single author that's done a creepypasta you guys have covered, I'd be like, I wrote one.
Like, Umbrello,
yeah.
How fortunate.
Anyway.
And this is called Tear in the Wallpaper. I had this job delivering hot meals to the elderly. That's like cooked meals, not like sexy meals.
Sexy. Oh, I mean, it can be both.
It can't be both.
I don't know.
State law says you can't be delivering hot, sexy meals.
I'm going to be typing up my
elderly.
business proposal while you're doing the rest of this. Hot meals, warm meals delivered by Chippendales to the elderly. Because the elderly women, they would go fucking crazy for that. I mean, they're old. They're not dead.
Just be frightened. If just your whole agency gets shut down for fucking sexual assault and like,
I don't know. My experience is that old women are the most like men get the bad rap. Yeah, I mean, men get a bad rap and we earn it. I mean, men are gross, but old women are probably worse than any group, especially when you get them all together.
Mm-hmm. There's a horror movie. Let's see if this is where Umbrello goes with it.
You're stuck at a bus station waiting for a ride, and a group of old women come in and just start like sexually harassing you. Yeah,
that would suck. I would, yeah. Okay. Some folks were wheelchair bound. Some had a bit of dementia, just a bit. Spot of dementia, sprinkle.
A spot of the old crazy brain.
Well, somebody was telling me about like how in like Australia there's like different slang for like saying somebody has dementia that's like offensive. That made me laugh a ton because it was like. It sounds more like an American making up what they think Australians would say, because it's like, oh, they have a kangaroo in their backyard. It's like, and that's supposed to like be like, oh, dementia. Like,
see, to me that sounds like somebody that's like married and seeing somebody on the side. Like that's term for having an affair.
Yeah, and I'm like. And I just like, of course, I go the wrong way with it, where it's like, that's offensive, that's wrong. And like, to me, it's like, I'm going to start making shit up that sounds like
I know, well, that's
because I'm like, oh, he's seeing jellyfish in June.
See, that's what I kind of wanted to do back there a minute ago, and then ended up with just all I could come up with on the spot was the old crazy brain, which is not any good.
Yeah,
and
it's like,
kangaroo. Yeah,
you can have you. It's absolutely not okay to say someone's dancing with koalas in the moonlight. You can't say it.
That guy only colors with orange crayons.
Yeah. All right. Some had their licenses taken away, or at least knew they shouldn't be driving. I'd usually stay and chat for a bit, which was expected since most of our clients had no one left to talk to. The company was almost as important as the food. One woman in particular I got to know pretty well. Mrs. Birmingham was a delight. She had this adorable little smile that would light up a room, as they say. A petite thing she was, must have been less than 5 feet tall. She was one of those little old ladies you just want to scoop up and put in your back pocket.
I've never wanted to do that.
I've never felt that in my life.
No.
It was unfortunate that she didn't have anyone to take care of her. At least she had something to look forward to every day. My favorite thing about Mrs. Birmingham was the way she would tell a story. She really knew how to grab your attention and pique your curiosity. Her inflection, her lack of hesitation, the passion she felt for the life she had led. She would weave tales of grand romance, family struggles, women's suffrage. I'm sure a lot of it wasn't true, considering her mind was going, but the way she spoke could make anything seem possible. Even women's suffrage. And her voice so delicate and soothing, I thought nothing could avert my attention from her daily anecdotes.
This guy's got a little crushy poo.
That is until I saw that tear in the wallpaper.
Oh, fuck this woman. She's not taking care of her wallpaper.
Her home was oddly pristine. I couldn't understand how an 85-year-old woman had kept everything so perfect. It was more than just clean and neat. Nothing was damaged or worn or faded. So then why? Why was there a tear in the wallpaper? Answer me.
Hey, I'm picturing the character like, violently shaking this petite little old woman till her neck snaps. You had a perfect
home. What did you do? Just a little tear about an inch long and a centimeter wide, begging to be yanked by some naughty, careless child. Begging me to stick my dick.
Is this a glory hole? Tell me.
Burman. I'm not sure how it got there or when. It could have appeared sometime since I started delivering meals, or maybe it was there all along. Either way, it bothered me. A lot. If someone was keeping her house all neat and tidy, why couldn't they mend the wallpaper? Was it not important? This is weird. This person's the villain to me so far.
Yeah, because it's like, she's like, I didn't fix it because it's 1 inch by 1 centimeter.
And I'm 85.
You're the first person in the world that's noticed it. But at the same time,
this is a Batman villain.
I could totally see myself in a situation like this where once you notice it, it would drive me nuts. But this person seems to be going anger with it. And mine wouldn't be anger. Mine would just be like, I can't stop looking at it.
Maybe that's just how I'm reading it. Maybe it's just my natural inflection to be like, what have you done? Instead of being like, oh, I can mend that for you. Was it not important? Why bother with the upkeep if you're not going to do a proper job? Jesus Christ. All right, that's not me reading it. He's a prick.
No, it's a very judgy person.
Why would you just why don't you just take a shit and wipe it on your wall? The logic seems a bit flawed now, but at the time I was too obsessed to realize how unreasonable it sounded. So the wallpaper ripped. Big deal, right? About 2 months had passed since I first noticed the tear, and it was apparent that no one was going to fix it. None of my business, that's what it was. But trying to ignore it became a chore. Mrs. Birmingham would be deep into one of her elaborate tales, and I would just stare at the tear. Did I ever tell you about when I dated Neil Armstrong? Not this week, I thought.
Oh, I thought you were stepping out of the story.
Yeah, he was
there.
He was
a gentleman, or was he a lecherous old man, or both?
I've never felt safer. Not this week, I thought. The story changed every time, though. That was half the fun, really, but one day I guess I just stopped paying attention. What is it, dear? She asked me. What are you looking at? That, I said flatly, pointing to the wall behind her. She backed up her wheelchair and turned. Yes, what is it? That rip. It's been bugging me. Why don't you get it fixed? She wheeled a little closer to the wall and squinted. I'm sorry, dear, my eyes aren't so good. I'm lucky I recognize who's coming through the door, though I always know it's you by the wonderful aromas.
I've said so they're both villains.
Yeah, it's from the wonderful scent of Irish Spring. I got sick of looking at the damn thing, so I did a little redecorating. Just fucking reseal it, Jesus Christ.
Right, that's a funny thing, and
it's a 1 inch fucking tear, man.
I say it's right, and if you're so mad, you're like, it's so easy to fix. Why doesn't anybody fix it? It's like, then fix it yourself. But that's exactly how people are.
You just said nobody's taking care of this woman. So your psycho ass went to her house 3 months and stared at a goddamn a tear in the wallpaper. Like, what the fuck?
Why can't anybody fix this? I mean, I'm not going to do it because fuck that.
I could die. But
I'd have to get glue and
the government should step in, man.
I've written my congressman, but they fail to respond.
Why hasn't this fucking place been condemned? There was this ugly horse painting in the hallway that I figured I could use to cover it up. What are you doing with that, dear? Asked Mrs. Birmingham. I convinced her the horse was lonely out in the hallway. Yeah, you convinced her. She giggled and said it was
You're in a wheelchair. What are you going to do to stop me? Mwahaha.
Yeah. She giggled and said it was a fine idea. It looked like the perfect solution, except that I'd have to put a nail in the wall. Seemed counterproductive. This person shouldn't be around the elderly.
Really around other people, I think.
Yeah, like, this person sounds fucking dangerous. Oh, don't worry about it, she assured me. These old walls have plenty of holes. Now I knew she was going blind. Sometime during my off day, the painting disappeared. I asked what happened to it. What happened to what, dear? She replied. Not only was the painting gone, but so was the hole I had made with the nail. And yet there remained the infamous tear, slightly larger now. That's not what infamous means.
I know. I love that word there. It's like, infamous, you're the only person that cares about this tear. That's the opposite of infamous.
Breaking news, tear on old woman wall. Man won't help. But now it's slightly larger, so...
Yeah.
Who's the fool here? An overwhelming desire came over me, and I wanted so badly to just grab and pull, but I figured Mrs. B would have a heart attack. This is like the Key and Peele sketch. I don't know if you ever watched their show, but there's a sketch they had where a guy's in an office for a job interview, and the guy conducting the interview has this giant jar of marbles, and the entire interview, the guy interviewing is just obsessed with the jar of marbles and wants to like put the marbles in his mouth to see how they feel. Very funny sketch. And
yeah, I need to watch that show because I've seen, sketches of theirs, of course, just like randomly, like, oh, this one, it's on YouTube and people are talking about it. And every fucking one I watched, I'm like dying of laughter.
It was super popular, so I think people kind of dismissed it for the hype, but just as a sketch show, there's not like an ounce of fat on any of their bits. Like, it's a very well written, tight show that
I mean, I think for me it was one of those things that I never flat out felt like I didn't know where it was on. I don't know if that was Comedy Central or...
Yeah, it was Comedy Central, and now pretty much all their sketches are just on YouTube. And
I think it just kind of hit... It looks like the first episode was in 2012. So I don't know. I was going to say hit during a busy... I had nothing going on in my life in 2012. But it's funny, like
Skyrim,
then. Well, yeah, I was still playing Skyrim because they keep re-releasing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Keegan-Michael Key, of course, and Jordan Peele are both fucking brilliant. Everything I've seen either of them in has been some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. So, and then I'm looking here, I don't know if he was just in it like once or something, but Colton Dunn, he was in Superstore too. He's hilarious. I mean, the cast around him, they always got funny people too but I don't know why I'm talking up the show that everybody else knows. My point is, I don't know why I haven't watched it. I need to remedy that because again, I consider both of them two of the funniest people like in the industry right now. Yeah. And they're both smart funny too. Like it's I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm talking them up. They don't need me talking them up, but
highly recommend it. But we're at a half an hour and I need to read faster.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tear's larger. An overwhelming desire came over me, and I wanted so badly to just grab and pull, but I figured Mrs. B would have a heart attack. I think we've all been there before. You see a dangling thread or a hair out of place, and you just want to yank it, right?
No. I do not have
the hair. I don't rip it out of my head.
If it's like a thread on my own shirt, sure, because it's bothering me. If I see somebody else's like thread out of place, no, don't fucking care. I'm not getting involved. My whole
I don't yank a thread on my own clothes.
No, I don't yank it because
I'm the king of like finding the one thread that will unravel it all.
Mm-hmm. And I would say I pay too much for my clothes to ruin them. I do, but that makes it sound like I wear designer clothes. It's just, if I spend $20 on a t-shirt, which is what my average t-shirt costs, I consider that like splurging. And I do it because the ones that I found, I love how they fit and feel and hold up. But yeah, my point, I am very protective of my clothes not because I think they're super nice, it's because I like them and I cannot afford to buy new ones.
I don't feel I'm unique in that respect. There's a reason people rip those tags off mattresses. It just feels good. Or maybe it's like OCD or something. Mm-hmm. I bet most people who saw how that little piece was just reaching out for someone to liberate it wouldn't have been able to resist as long as I did. I tried other ways to cover it up, like moving a bookshelf in front of it. Someone moved it back. If Mrs. B didn't have any family to cook meals for her, then who the hell was interfering?
Well, I think that's part of the
interfering.
Was that part of the actual story? Did he say who the hell? Oh, I thought it was you adding that.
He said if he didn't have any family to cook meals for her, then who the hell was interfering? Like
I thought you were adding that.
Scheme.
Right. Yeah.
Someone had to be doing maintenance on the place, but when I asked her about it, she said, "Oh, I don't know. People come and go. They're not all as nice as you, dear." I still don't know what was true and what was her imagination, or mine. My last resort was to avoid the living room altogether. That went well at first, until I started hearing these faint sounds, like someone slowly tearing a sheet of paper coming from just within earshot. I'd go check the living room and find nothing had changed. "I think you're getting tired of my stories, dear," Mrs. B would say. More like I was
while
going
sharpening
nuts.
her knife. Oh, yeah.
Not a chance, I'd assure her. But something had to be done, or that insignificant blemish on the wall was going to be the end of my sanity. I tried switching routes with someone, but no one wanted to switch, and my boss was like, "Well, if you don't want to do it, I can hire someone who can." I explained about the wallpaper driving me crazy, and he practically fired me on the spot.
Yeah, rightfully so. Huge red flag.
Yeah, you couldn't even make up some shit? Then one day when I went over there, Mrs. Birmingham was still in bed. She said she was tired, so I helped her eat. After that, she fell asleep. Suddenly, I felt really strange being in her house, like I was there all alone. As I was on my way out, I turned around and looked at the tear in the wallpaper. This was my chance.
I've been waiting for this moment for months.
I don't deny it's been on my mind. With unwavering determination, I snatched a pair of scissors from Mrs. B's lonely sewing basket. It was time to end this, once and for all.
The terror is he about to kill himself.
Away. Yeah. Whatever gets the job done, I guess. But it was hard getting the scissors flush to the wall in such a way that I could cut off the whole piece. There were still these 2 little slits left, mere millimeters each. All I could do was try and grip one side with my fingernails and peel it just a tad, enough to guide it an inch over away, and making a clean tear. But things didn't go the way I had intended. What started as a minor imperfection became a glaring injury. There's no way Mrs. Birmingham wouldn't notice something that obvious, even with her subpar vision. I tried to do the same thing again, to make a clean tear, resulting in a second failure. "Shit," I whispered. There's no going back now. Yeah.
She's going to have to take all
for a penny, in for a pound. I'm tearing down the house.
Well, in fairness, first time I've identified with this character, because that would be my solution, is take all the wallpaper down, then deny she ever had it. Be like, "Look, lady, you're crazy."
Gently, I tugged at the protrusion. Christ, I knew it was wrong, but it felt so right. All right, he's a sex pest. The idea was to minimize the damage, but as I kept going, it became impossible to stop. It was far too exhilarating. I yanked with all my might as the torn section ribboned and snaked around, refusing to detach from the wall like it was holding on for dear life. Up and down and around it went, over and around the window trim, the doorways, behind the furniture. I needed to continually advance my grip due to the ever-increasing slack. It was like unraveling the largest sweater ever knitted, or winning an epic tug-of-war. When it was all over, I couldn't believe what I had done. Fired.
Chill out, dude. You're not the first person to get fired because you were caught yanking it in a client's living room.
Yeah. All been there, son. Fired. That's what I was going to be. I'd be the first employee to get canned for vandalizing an old woman's home. I tried to
probably not. But...
Yeah, absolutely not. I tried to convince myself it was nothing more than an unfortunate accident, but the guilt ate me up all night. And in the morning, I knew the right thing to do was to just tell my boss the truth, no matter the consequences. A couple of squad cars were parked outside the office. This was going to be tougher than I thought. Reluctantly, I headed for the chopping block, expecting an earful and then some. As I approached my boss's desk, 2 officers grabbed me. Startled, I began blurting out an apology. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. It just happened, and then I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop tearing. I'll pay for it, I promise. Just please don't fire me." "Oh, you'll pay, all right," I remarked as I felt the cold steel on my wrists. "I'm being arrested?" I was afraid for my job and my reputation, but prison? My boss stayed silent as a third officer grabbed the front of my shirt and pulled me close. "After what you did to that poor old woman," he told me, "you're lucky I'm a cop or I'd peel you like a fucking potato, you psycho freak." The other 2 pulled him away and stood between us. "Why'd you do it?" he shouted, red-faced and spitting. "Huh? You sick son of a bitch? Why'd you do it?" I love that wallpaper. I don't know. The guy was practically foaming at the mouth. Was what I'd done really worth that kind of reaction? My voice quivered as I struggled to make excuses. I swear, I tried to stop myself. I tried. But I had to know. I had to know how it felt. This is my cousin Vinny. Haven't you ever wanted to pull a tag off a mattress or unravel a sweater? You know it's wrong, but you know it'll feel good, and then it just happens and you can't stop? You guys get it, right? My words were met with mute tongues and horrified expressions. It was as if they had heard something completely different than what came out of my mouth, something so vile and depraved. The shock had robbed them of their ability to speak. The silence broke at last, but only so an officer could read me my rights. Alone in an interrogation room, I wrestled with memories of Mrs. Birmingham. How could I have done something so disrespectful and destructive to someone so innocent and sweet? Then I had an awful thought. What if she saw what I did to her living room and her poor heart just couldn't take it? As the notion crossed my mind, a detective came in and threw down some photos on the table. Gruesome, unspeakably grisly photos. Timidly I asked, "Who is this?" "Who do you think?" he replied in disgust. "It's poor old Edna Birmingham." I looked again, but I honestly couldn't tell it was her. Every inch of skin had been torn from her body. The end.
Leaves a lot of questions, like, so what did that initial tear actually represent?
Well, she was old.
Yeah. I like it. I actually, it kind of depends on some interpretation, but because I think if you just like face value, this person couldn't not focus on this tear. It's like, well, that's unrealistic. But if you like look at it from like the angle that like maybe he was delusional too, like had some kind. I keep saying he. I don't know if they ever said the gender of the protagonist, yeah. But maybe the protagonist had like a mental breakdown or was like schizophrenic or something like that. You know, I don't want to put, because I don't know enough about mental, conditions to say like which one. But so Twilight Zone, or just like, I think what it probably was actually meant, where it was just, no, it was literally the wallpaper, but like something weirdly supernatural was tied between the two. I don't know, but I like it.
I like that. I like that uncertain connection, because we were riffing on it, but when you think about it, like that they just fucking snapped is plausible with how they sort of set them up throughout the story to be. Yeah, I mean, it would certainly explain why they cared so much about this tear in the first place when... Yeah. Like... But then there's also that room for like, maybe they didn't black anything out. They literally just tore the wallpaper. And
yeah, and it could have been like the wallpaper. The reason they were focused on it is some supernatural pull was like kept like, you know, like the house is controlling him or something.
Yeah. It was a very funny story, but I actually thought it was like, as I was like approaching the end, I was like, really, this is how we're ending it? But then I was like, that's a pretty solid, like, eyebrow raising conclusion for that story.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a little implausible that he'd get arrested and still like be sitting in the interrogation room thinking it's about wallpaper. But
that was probably how often, like, it must happen a lot the way like media portrays it, where people just like get arrested and don't shut up, but don't specify what they're talking about enough to like clear the air. Yeah,
I mean, I know there's examples of that where people say things that sound incredibly damning, but it's because you're completely on two different things. Like, and it happens because in a situation like this, obviously it's fictional and extreme on both ends, but it's that confirmation bias where the cops are expecting the person to react to the crime, and the person has no idea that a crime occurred, so they're expecting something else.
I would love if this was the script for like the setup for My Cousin Vinny 2.
You end up in front of the same judge and everything.
So you're telling me that this person peeled himself like a fucking potato?
But it ends with the exact same way, with Marissa Tomei like rattling off a bunch of car facts.
Being an expert on wallpaper. Fuck, I'd watch it.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I watch it. I'm willing to watch about anything with Marissa Tomei in it. She's enjoyable.
Critics agree.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what's great is she is aged,
like a reverse almost.
Yeah, you know, it's to say not at all.
Yeah.
And Joe Pesci is very old, but I would love if they like.
Or still a couple.
I would love to see them still be a couple in that.
And think about it this way: you could even the title would be My Cousin Vinny 2, Caught Yanking It. Or yanking my chain or something.
Yanking my chain.
I mean, you'd have to have that phrase in there, but said in a very Brooklyn or whatever accent that was supposed to be.
Good movie. Good story today.
Yeah. I mean, I was skeptical for the first half, and then bam, they closed it out.
They stuck the landing.
Yeah.
So I did it. I'm good at picking creepypastas.
I'm not, but I'm probably going to do it again. People, if they were smart, would be asking about this point, why are these two idiots still doing a show right now? Because every fucking week we start with, I was so busy that my eyeball popped out of socket, but here we are. But
that's a good question. Maybe we'll have an answer next week.
No, I think the answer is this is like quickly becoming like the only escape for like an hour a week to be like, yeah, I can just be completely stupid right now and not think about work. But
I don't need an excuse. I don't have like family obligations or anything. If we weren't doing this show, I would be doing the same thing. Probably, I would just be making my friends listen to it against their will. This way, it's optional for everyone involved.
Reminds me of a post I saw on like Instagram or maybe Blue Sky or something, and it's one of those clearly fake. Well, maybe not, but probably fake. Where there's some like Twitter blue check guy like, is anybody? What about it's like a podcast, but it's in person and live with your friends, and no, you don't actually record it. You just sit around and talk. And somebody's like, yeah, this tech bro just invented hanging out.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, and
it's hard to do.
That's the thing. If we weren't doing the show, I wouldn't be doing that with like friends. I'd be in the basement talking to myself.
Like I love hanging out with my friends, but it's tough to like coordinate that because it takes like this. We just need to have an hour.
Yeah.
You know,
don't have to go anywhere. I wouldn't have to put on pants, but I do still have them on.
And it says something about me that like this is super easy to do, and I still like, oh fuck, I gotta plug my headphones in. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. But yeah, it's fun to do, and we apologize for it. It's always like the punt topic of like, oh, I got to do a creepypasta. I fucking love reading creepypastas.
Yeah,
it's so fun for me.
And I do. It's we always say, oh, it's another creepypasta. But what's great about it, they're entertaining. I like them in general anyway. But it's fun because it gets us talking about writing, which we both enjoy. But it also branches out into other things like My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
Like
they're really good setups, and
yeah.
I like the other stuff we talk about too, but I'm not gonna apologize for it anymore. We are almost at 250 episodes. If you don't know we're bad at this, that's on you.
It's a very good point. So
tune in next week, or don't. if we finally told you,
if we just pissed you off,
times,
and you're like, fuck you guys, who do you think you are, and so you don't listen to us anymore, that's fair.
I'm Ben Matlock of the Non-Essential Podcast. That's who I am. I'm gonna do the Glenn Ross Alec Baldwin speech.
Yeah, and
I'll be like, you see this watch? It costs $20.
And if any of you have any problems with anything Ben said, you can take it up with me, and I'll give you his home address so you can go punch him in the face.
Don't come to my home address.
No, I wouldn't actually dox anybody. But
we can meet up. I'm always at Taco Bell. So that's like my home address. Anyway, you can find it. All right, we're done. Till next time. Oh, happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Boo.
This will come out exactly on Halloween.
Boo. See, it can be scary or it can be disapproving. Take your pick.